I'm I Will Dominate, and this is Thorin's channel. The guy who, if I keep on associating with him, will get me banned on Twitch eventually.
I'm drinking my Gamer Subs, which I always have in the morning. Delicious energy formula. You can support me by getting some and save 10% by using the code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersubs.gg. So there was two that you could have done for the tier list for teams. One was a normal one, S, A, B, C, D. And there was another one where it was more expanded. It was like S plus, S, A, whatever. And the thing is, you had way more, like E, F. And on that one, it would make it a lot easier, right? Couldn't it? Because I could obviously then just go Gen.G and BLG, top tier, but then like S is like the slightly below, and then all you could do is just put the first teams first and the second teams second. But I'm not going to do it that way. I actually like this one here because I think it forced me to make harder choices as opposed to just having a cozy tier for every team to be in. So I think what we're going to do here is, obviously I'm going to start with my best teams, right? This is where I actually feel like people are cheating a little bit. They're thinking because BLG only floundered at the beginning of summer, then got really insanely good and beat everyone in the best of fives, didn't lose any best of fives, that BLG should automatically be the number one favourite for Worlds. But the point is, they don't have Gen.G or Hanwha Life in their LPL. So we have no idea if they would have gotten upset by a Hanwha Life or if they would have lost to Gen.G. So I personally don't actually see what the reason is to say Gen.G isn't number one still. Like, I saw them lose a very close final that was 5 games to Hanwha Life. That's it. And even then, like, there's a world they not only could have won that, there's a world where, like, obviously the meta swap really made it work for Hanwha Life. Like, I'm still putting Gen.G number one. And I'm also going to put BLG. So Gen.G, spoiler, they have the best player in the world in Chovy. The lineup in general is really good. Like, I think every player in their lineup is a top 10 player in the world. The reason I say top 10 is I do think Pays is a little bit overrated. So I think he'd be like on the brink of my top 5 ADCs. But you go top 10, every player can be top 10. Now, if you go for BLG, look, I'm not going to put people like Wei necessarily so high up. And I also do think that On had a fucking mare of a, like, summer onwards. I think that guy, though, yeah, like, best bottle in the world, like, that died after spring. That just died. That's done. Like, if anything, after spring, it was fucking TES that had the best bottle in. Like, that whole Elk On just God, it's like, not really. Elk's still pretty good, but even then he wasn't as good in the summer, and then On was way worse. So I'm going to take them still. And by the way, Knight was phenomenal by the end of summer. That whole, like, he's having bad games. That was at the beginning of summer and often in the placement fucking games. And he actually smurfed after that and had some mega games. It was some of like the best games you've ever seen. Like, actually some of the best individual carry games you've ever seen. So they're both insanely good teams. Like, these are the two obvious favourites to win Worlds. Now, after that, I think the crucial thing here is, since this is a tier list for Worlds, there's 2 ways you could do this. You could either rank teams based on their strength now, or you could try and sort of rank strength and be predictive, I think, towards what you think Worlds would be like. So since we know some of the potential, like, meta swaps at Worlds, like the mages in mid lane and the jungle doesn't look like it's going to be a carry jungle meta, etc., I think it's actually quite fair to take teams like, for example, you have to ask the question, even though Hanwha Life just won LCK, which in theory should automatically make you a favourite for Worlds and an S-tier team, I'll put them there for now, but I will consider later. Like, I think, for example, that the meta switch in mid will actually hurt Zeka, so I think he'll actually be worse, or Zeka as I call him, maybe because I listened to the LPL back in the day. So I do think I have to put them S for now, but I'll consider later maybe bumping them to A, because if I look at this meta, then again, though, to be fair, I don't know on that one, actually. I also do feel like the meta might be better for Thorin top, though. I think Peanut's going to be fine either way. If anything, it's probably better for him to sort of carry jungle meta. So I guess maybe that evens out. Everyone's going to go, yeah, but Peanut chokes. Maybe this is a World he doesn't choke then. Maybe there's that. So I'm going to put them S tier for now. Now, here's the problem. When it was the upper bracket and we hadn't done the 4-team double elimination thing, I would have said TES would have been in here before Hanwha Life. They would have been there. It would have been like it would have been this order even. The order doesn't matter, but we're just doing tiers here. Top Esports looked mega. The problem is, though, cause Cream hasn't won championships since his first time on a big team. One, I think that's part of why it's going to still take a little bit of time to get over the hump and win like an LPL. Two, I also do think, like, internationally, he looked a lot better at EWC, but he looked kind of shaky at MSI. And also, he was the guy where, if anything, it was even like a meta where he could play the things he wanted. So I don't know about that one. Like, how is that? Like, right now, you can play the Yorn and the Yasuo and all that crap that he likes to play, those melee champions. What's he going to do at Worlds if it's a mage meta? That's just not his style, right? So that's a little bit concerning. That already makes me think maybe they should be an A tier. Then you look elsewhere. I do think Jackie Love and Mako are fucking mega. I'm a big fan of 369, even though he is a little bit... He's a bit like... here's a controversial take. I think he is in some ways sort of like the LPL Broken Blade, because I feel like everyone always hypes them because of domestic play, but then internationally, just flip a coin. If it comes up heads, they do good in the international tournament. If it comes up tails, they do underwhelmingly. Because actually, I've heard 369's been hyped for international. Remember, he used to play with Knight back when they were on those lineups that could make to Worlds and do nothing. He was also a player that was very hyped as a top player and has been every single year going into Worlds. And as I say, flip a coin internationally. Half the time he's really good, half the time he's just whatever. So that's a concern. And then obviously the Tian factor. Tian is either like a genius pathing player that still has some hands and can be an MVP and look fucking dope and all first team and all that. He's done it so many years. Or, especially internationally, it's not even the whole tournament. He'll just have games where he just serial ints. So that same genius intuitive feel that lets him path out and sort of just know where to be and where the other jungler won't be. Sometimes when like his spider sense is off, he just fucking shit. Like the problem is he doesn't have a go-to. Like he doesn't have the equivalent of a quarterback going, oh, there's no throw here, I'll do a check down. He still just goes for the play and sends it. So for that reason, I'm going to put them in 8A. Even though I have to say, of all the 8A teams, this is probably the number one team that could win Worlds. Top esports. They do have the players to do it. Just I will always say, right, first of all, only Korean mids for LPL have ever won Worlds. Knight's never won it. Cool never won it. So if Cream wins it, it would be crazy to think Cream is the first Chinese mid to win Worlds. Like that just doesn't seem plausible, does it? It seems like if anything, he wouldn't be the one. And then also Jungle being a little bit dodgy, that scares me too. Like, do I really think Tian's winning a second Worlds? And at this point, it does feel a little bit implausible. The rest of the team is fabulous, though. I guess it really depends on how they adapt to that mid lane meta. So after them, I think actually this is the saddest thing of all. I'm not immediately even looking to anyone in Korea. Like I'm not looking to T1. I'm not looking to Dplus. These teams are actually going to probably be more beat here, I've got to say. The immediate team I'm actually thinking of now is just Weibo Gaming. And the reason why I'm thinking of Weibo Gaming is because they did have a crazy glow up for the actual... they got better in summer when they got Tarzan in, who's always been a mega player domestically, by the way. And then in the playoffs... It's not even that they were insane. They were never insane. They were just really clutch. They were really clutch and they were doing a decent job at adapting. And they obviously were able to get the Lucian onto Xiaohu, the Zeri onto Xiaohu, and he was a really strong player. If you know a few years back, when Light, the ADC, used to play on LNG, I used to think he was a little bit of a liability, actually. He was one of those ones where you took him to Worlds, and sometimes like his mechanics just disappeared in the middle of a fight, even though that's his whole strength. He actually looked really good in these playoffs. So I'm also feeling like, I think actually like the bot lane of Weibo is going to be mad underrated, Light and Crisp. I think those are actually pretty fucking solid players. Even though Crisp's himself a world champion, somehow... he gets like the flame of Tian, but then people never give him the credit when he's good again. Like Tian gets the credit when he's good and everyone laughs and memes like, lol, MVP, now he's going to int Worlds and get another Dart Day award. And then everyone just acts like Crisp's a bomb. By the way, Crisp was in the final of last Worlds. Remember, he was on the Weibo that did that. So I already like them to be there. They're not going to be an S-tier team, that's obvious. But if you want an outside chance to win Worlds, I think this is where the outside chance reasonably ends. That's the end of the teams that can win Worlds, these 5 here. And by the way, Xiaohu, yeah, he's never won Worlds, but 1, he'd be due to win, wouldn't he? And 2, he is one of the absolute greatest players of all time. Like, if you don't know, Knight only just by winning this LPL matched the amount of LPLs Xiaohu had won. And Xiaohu was, at the time, the only active player that had, like, the 5 championships, because the other one was Clearlove, and even then, some of them might even be ones where he's semi-benched if I had to go and look it up. So I think Xiaohu's just a criminally underrated player. Also, by the way, even though he was actually smurfing in this meta where he could play the assassins, you can absolutely put this guy onto majors. He is a fucking phenomenal all-time great LPL mid laner. I mean, fuck LPL, just all-time great mid laner. Like I always say, for me, I've said this on the Hot Take Show, he is who people think Faker is now. They think Faker's like, oh, he's like a captain and a shot caller, but he's really got good hands. Like I saw some bozo the other day, I'll show you on Twitter sometime, where he was trying to claim, because he found like 4 different instances of Faker doing a play like, you're still that guy, he's got like, he's still sick. And it's like, oh, what a fucking reach, bro. We see him play a million best of 3s. Do you watch Chelsea K? He isn't that guy. Meanwhile, Xiaohu, he didn't have a very good last 2 years, by the way. He wasn't like all LPL or whatever. But if you look, like he still has hands. He plays in a mega competitive region for Midland, by the way. A way more competitive region than the LCK. And also, the amount of fucking big playoff series this guy can have the carry performance in. Then if you go the years before that, so if you go like 2022 and backwards, he was still mega. He was a fucking mega player, mate. And obviously when he was top, let's not even talk about that. The guy played top lane for 1 year, and he actually should be on like a list of best top laners of all time. He's probably a top 20 top laner of all time just for that 1 year alone. It's fucking, probably top 10. It was Smurf material. And he was a fucking shot calling. So the next team I'm going for after these, I'm doing it sort of in order, by the way, but it is just about tiers. I'm going to then go... What's funny is I know all the fucking Westerns like, TL? Is it TL? Bro, TL didn't even win LCS. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to say this right now. Is TL even B tier or are they C tier? I think we're going to say fuck it. I'm going to put TL C tier, and here's why. Because almost, as my friend Moses in Counter-Strike always likes to say, only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Because obviously when you throw the horseshoe, if it gets close, you win. If you throw a hand grenade next to someone, it explodes and they still die, don't they? But in everything else, almost means you didn't do the thing. Now, it might imply you could have done it, but you didn't. So when you're asking, oh, it almost did something, maybe that means they can do it next time. What you have to ask then is, right, well, what sample size are we talking about here? Like, is it the case that they almost did something, it was a one-off, and if they actually play again, maybe actually this time they can win. Maybe it was just like, you know, it was one time only. Well, that's the problem that you've immediately got for your TL, right? Let me just run down the list. So in spring, if you want to count the spring LCS Championship, you have to count all of the spring. In the first round of the playoffs in spring, they lost 3-2 to FlyQuest. That had Jensen. Now, I still think Jensen's solid. It's just he's in like the weird post-prime part of his career where he's just sort of playing like the odd champion that's good, and he clearly phones it in a bit and then only starts trying in the matches that are supposed to matter, and then he isn't as good as he used to be. He's definitely degraded from the last couple of years. But everyone else is memeing like, lol, Jensen shit. Well, I tell you what, Jensen with FlyQuest and Boosie all looking really ass beat this Team Liquid squad in a best of 5 on LAN this year. That happened. Now, yes, in the final, after that weird shit where that Team Liquid strategic coach got like outed for some really scandalous outside of the service shit and had to be removed before the finals, probably undercutting all of TL's finals prep, then yeah, TL just murked them completely. And since then, TL looked like by far the best NA team. And obviously they kicked out Jensen out of FlyQuest and in came Quad, right? So if you look at that, the best win, literally the best win of FlyQuest was the final against, Team Liquid, was the final against FlyQuest when that weird shenanigan, when Jensen was there and when that shit with the coach happened. I'm going to hurt so many feelings when I keep talking right now. After that, you went to MSI. You remember MSI? Then you played, again, let's just go and look it up for a second, because this is going to be fun. Like, this is called, like, the splash of cold water into the face of every NA fan that desperately needed it. It's actually almost a shame that they didn't win Summer, so I could just do this even more effectively. So watch, we'll go to MSI here. Fucking hell. Oh, by the way, some people subscribe. Shout out to Ike TV and Tomax of Dagger Spine. So if we go to MSI, remember this one? Everyone memed on TES. When TES lost to Gen.G down here, they're like, lol, TES, lol. What happened to your TES? I'll tell you what they did. The 3-0 clapped fucking Team Liquid. Now, yeah, just like I'm going to say for a million fucking series now, TL was in this series. There was moments it was looking solid, like maybe they could have won. Still got 3-0'd. Still didn't win a game. Then TES, who wasn't even that good in this tournament, were the only team to take Gen.G to 5 games, and then they got rocked completely by G2. By the way, I give G2 like spiritual credit for almost beating T1, but they didn't beat T1 ever. They didn't beat them here, and they didn't beat them here. So the results do matter. So that one already is that you almost did something good. Then you went to the low bracket and you did beat Fnatic. Well, congratulations. Like, I don't even think this Fnatic is that good, by the way. They're more of an upset BO1 merchant, BO3 team for me. They're not a BO5 team. I think they're mad fucking sus in that scenario. It's actually to the shame of people like Mad Lions and fucking BDS that this Fnatic team was even the one playing G2 in those finals. Actually, that's an indictment against those squads. And then you went and you went against TL and T1. Are you ready for this story? We all know the story. Oh, hey, they almost beat T1 and they looked like they should. Yeah, I agree. They looked like they should have beat T1, but they didn't. And they didn't even get to 5 games. They lost 3-1. So you're going to hear this like, no, but they almost. Yeah, how much almost? So there's the first 2 almost. You almost beat TS, but you didn't. You almost beat T1, but you didn't. You did beat Fnatic, but who really cares? Fnatic ain't winning Worlds, bro. Then you go to Esports World Cup. At the Esports World Cup, remember, you got another beatdown of Fnatic. Fine, you're better than Fnatic. You have real macro. You also have way better jungle support, in my opinion. Then you almost beat T1 again. Like, here's the worst one of all, boys. If you were ever going to beat T1, this is the time it had to happen. Because this was only a best of 3. This is only a best of 3. If you can't beat him in a best of 3, how are you going to beat him in a best of 5, bro? So you didn't beat T1. Oh, but we almost did. Yeah, and then T1 looked way better in the final and won the tournament. And by the way, T1, after that, went into a complete nosedive the second they got back to Korea. So you didn't even beat that T1, who admittedly had these 2 matches that were Smurfs, where they beat BLG very well. BLG looked like shit. And then they beat TS, who only looked good on game 1 and looked awesome. So I'll give you like credit for competing, but you didn't win the game. And then let's just go and look now at this last one. Remember, you just had your first ever split where you went undefeated. It was in the best of 3s. You won all 7 best of 3s. You had a chance to do a split where you didn't lose a series. You beat 3-0 TL at 100 Thieves. You 3-2'd FlyQuest in the upper bracket. By the way, should we just skip over that, or should we going to mention that FlyQuest, who everyone else thought was like the 3rd best NA team, it was supposed to be Cloud9 was the 2nd best, FlyQuest almost beat you. Well, does almost count or not? It's not that big a deal to me, so I'm not going to big up FlyQuest too much, but you almost blew that one. Then in the final, look, I'll say this, on paper, in normal circumstances, you would have gotten to a game 5 there, and I probably would have favoured you to still win in the game 5 unless Inspired did something incredible macro-wise. So I think you probably should spiritually have won this tournament, but you didn't. And even the way you lost that, I thought was embarrassing. Like, I'd have to go back. I'm not an expert enough that I could break it down like the fucking Zapruder film, frame by frame. But I feel like you actually, for real, could have just ignored the support Busio, who went after the wave and tried to and go after the wave. I actually feel like you could have just tanked the turret shots. Didn't you have all your players alive? I feel like you could have just gone and gambled even 2 people dying and just killed the Nexus. I could be wrong on that one. Obviously, they just didn't notice that the supers were coming in. But even that is really dodgy, because if we're crediting this team for its macro knowledge, how does no one remember that we just did like a base defense where all our inhibs are down? How have we forgotten that detail and that we even lost our fucking towers for our Nexus? Like, I know that's not a normal scenario, but surely someone remembers it happened. Bro, we have Core JJ on this team. We have Impact, the MVP. We have all these stud players. Umpty's a fucking jungler, mate. Like, does no one ever look at the minimap? Jungler's supposed to be looking at the minimap like every fucking half a second, bro. Like StarCraft style, like my boy Bisu with the fucking F keys. Oh, what's going on? So that's actually a fucking point against you, macro. And then you didn't win. You didn't win the fucking LCS. So you didn't win the LCS, but you're going to have the gall to tell me I should pick this team to be as good as like T1 to win Worlds. Get the fuck out of here. So I'm putting them into C. Now, by the way, they're probably going to be the best team in C. I mean, it remains to be seen what I do with G2. They'll probably be C as well, but they could be the best team in C. Semidon subscribed. Shout out to him. I'll now do the T1. T1 is obviously just B for me. Now, here's what's funny. If you look at how they played in most of summer, they're probably actually in C, by the way. But I do think this is a team where I don't think it's that they necessarily get insanely better. What I think happens is this. First of all, when you have meta changes, they classically have done that thing where if the meta doesn't immediately fit them with the power picks, they go sort of a night side or alternative meta route where they pick things that works for Carrier or for Faker or Owner or whatever. They just go around like, so they pick a weird angle and go with that. Zeus obviously has some weird flexes he can do top. You do the weird angle, and then if they can lock into that and be the first ones to master it, they have won tournaments before and they've made finals before when they shouldn't. Now, none of that was happening in summer. It was probably the worst meta for them. You saw, actually, almost everyone looked way worse. After EWC, who I thought Order was the MVP of that tournament, he looked way worse. Gumayushi just couldn't play some of the super strong ADCs, which is a fucking joke. That's why I've always had people like Viper way over. It's also why I've always thought Zeus is actually the best laner in T1, and then I would have, after that, the best player is Carrier, right? Carrier just wasn't in a position where he could do many weird picks. It was just sort of basic stuff. And Faker's champion pool completely fell apart. And some of his games on Corki, it wasn't just the one you're thinking of. He had a couple that were complete ass. Just ass. So he had a couple of good games, but this might be one of his splits, aside from last year's summer, with the least amount of good Faker games or big carry games. So with that said, I do think at Worlds, they're already doing ye old Faker mid lane champion pool buff of like Azir Ariana type. That's what he's going to be fucking spamming. You're also, even though, yeah, you would want the Lee Sin for Order, he's going to be totally fine if it's like a Sejuani As long as he can do some carry tops, I feel like Zeus will always have the extra value, and he will always be able to provide some pressure release for Faker's mid lane pool, because then you sometimes even have the Joker's ADC players or melee mids like a Yone, where you just have it on Zeus instead of Faker, don't you? It still works. You can still do it. And then the main question is, what's Gumayusi going to be playing? As long as he can play normal stuff or an alternate meta via Keria supplementing, that's why I've always thought Keria's the more important player. He can do things by what he can play to make the 2v2 matchup that no one else can, that can make it okay for Guma to pick some weird ass shit. Maybe he's going to just be playing fucking Jin or something like that at this tournament. Who knows, right? And obviously, if you can ever pick a Caitlyn, then he can fucking smurf, can't he? So I just think they'll be better at Worlds than they were in LCK Summer, but I don't think they'll be an elite team. Like, I think this is the most obvious Worlds where T1 either doesn't get out of the group stage, which I don't actually think will happen, or I think this is the first time ever that they just lose in the quarterfinals. I think if they get the quarters, I mean, if you look, I've literally got 5 teams above that I think can beat them. I think almost every single team here would beat T1 in a best of 5. Like even Weibo. Even on traditional picks, I think Weibo can beat T1. We've also got their own clutch factor. We've got very good players across the map. Yeah, we don't quite know how Breathe's going to play. The others, obviously, we don't know if Tarzan's going to perform internationally. It's not that he always chokes, by the way. He just hasn't had many really good international tournaments. It's more like that angle, a bit like Knight. I do still have concerns about Ona and Gumayusi's champion pool, but even so, I expect them to still be a solid team. The reason also, by the way, why I don't think they get that much better and why I don't think they'll go out in the group stage is I do think T1, the name, and Faker, the name, have a nameplate effect in the server, which is reminiscent of Bjergsen on TSM back in the day, or maybe you could say Caps on G2 now, which is people are scared of that name. When they see that name on like a schedule playing them or in the server opposite them or in the fucking draft, I can tell people get nervous. Their Pepe sweat comes down. And so as a result, they start thinking like, oh my God, I'm playing Faker and T1. And so I do think, unfortunately, in Swiss system, when you put them against teams like Team Liquid, G2, Fnatic, any of these other teams, Dplus, all these other lower teams that they're going to play in Swiss system for some of their lives, they're just going to beat those teams pretty much based on the other team just like not being fucking clutch, not having any fucking morale, breaking mentally when there's one good macro move from T1. So I do still think T1 should be pretty good. After them, the obvious team to do is G2. But this is the problem. This is the problem. Do I put them C or do I put them B? I've just realised another issue I've got here, actually, which is if I do this type of tier list, then all the shitter teams are going to be in D, but there's no space. Maybe I should have done that other tier list. That guy could have been right, actually. Fuck. I've just realised maybe I should have had the extra tier list, because obviously it's outrageous that SHG is going to be in the same tier as like Fnatic, isn't it? That just seems unreasonable. So the question is, am I being too harsh with B? Like RTL and G2 actually in B together? Let's think about this a second. Because the difference is, T1 you could still see upsetting some of these teams above on like an outside 3-2 series. TL can't. G2, let's talk about G2. G2 in theory can. Like, I think actually that G2, the problem is their form looks like shit, and their meta read in summer was ass by the end. It got worse as the summer went on, but their players are so good that, look, I won't say what I used to say. In theory, they can play through any lane, but I've just learned Hans Sama, if you don't play through him and play to bot, is just not comfortable and will have ints and bad games and fail to carry. You have to play through him. You have to play through him early. You have to give him kill lanes where possible. You have to use caps even in the draft to set up Hans Sama, and you have to unlock the bot lane and get this guy fucking rolling. And then also, to some degree, I think let him shot call how he moves around the map. But if you do that, that's when they're at their best. So he's more of a traditional ADC meta guy. I actually thought he was a little bit lost sometimes, even though he got it better towards the end in terms of his individual play by the end. I thought he played pretty well in this last finals. Mickey X has been into like a motherfucker, but he's also like one of the main macro pieces in that team. I think Yike's been really off the meta. He's looked like he only wanted to play the carry style, which I think was inappropriate for this last team fight style match. I think if you just drafted team fight comps like a Shio would, I think they would just be way better. Caps was good, but actually had a few dodgy moments in summer, and actually didn't want to do the Zeri and didn't want to do the Lucian and do those super powerful picks you watch in the LPL. Broken Blade was actually a bit sus, I think, the last split and a half. So they're not in great form, but I actually think at Worlds they will be better. I think at Worlds, like, first of all, I think they're going to be a very good team in Swiss. And then secondly, look, I don't think they can probably beat any of the teams above them in a best of 5 either, but they could make the top 8. I personally did a prediction on Hot Take Point. The hot take is that they'll just lose like 2 to 3 in the Swiss and go out. So I guess for now, they should be where T1 is. Like T1, if they play really well, could like creep into A, which these two teams can't for my money. But I think T1 right now has to be B. And if anything, all 3 of these teams are bordering on C. So we could also do that, to be fair. So I don't really know that I'd buy that. So for now, actually, you know what? Maybe that's the ultimate disrespect. T1 for the moment, I'm just going to leave these teams in and I'll think about when I've filled everyone out. So after G2, we're going to go LNG. And the reason why I'm putting LNG in C is because if you don't know, LNG's best player is obviously Scout, who last year was the double MVP of the fucking league and only played bad in that one series at Worlds against Faker. And even then just played passive. Didn't play like outright bad at INs. The problem is, Scout apparently, people think won't make it to Worlds because of some contract dispute with EDG. And so, unfortunately, there's some like weird ruling, something weird, like you can't take someone who was top 6, a player from there. I understand why. You don't want them to just get like, hey, rookie, come on in, like one of the greatest, I think the best player of all time. Let's have him play mid lane. So it's like, that's like Simple standing in for fucking mouse spots back in the day when he was already cracked out on Na'Vi in ECS because Na'Vi didn't play in ECS and then he would like play better than anyone in mouse would have. And drop like a plus 50 for the series, even against the best teams. So instead, apparently, the rumour goes that they're probably going to use Yagao. If they use Rookie, I would be mega hyped. If they use Rookie, I'm not exaggerating. I can't know how they'd play it, sight unseen, but I would put them at the worst A team and say they have like an outside dark horse chance to win Worlds. But I'm going to say they're C for now, because if they bring Yagao in, the main issue here is this, right? This team, when last year was all about Tarzan and Scout, this year, it's still about Scout, but also Gala. How the fuck is Yagao going to replace Scout? He isn't. They're not the same type of player. Scout's a much stronger player, especially mechanically. Also, Yagao's more known of like the Niski, don't be like play for the map style. I don't think that's going to be that great in this team. And then this is where the problem, why they call him Zika is a problem. Obviously, their top player is Zika. He has lived a little bit off that reputation from the summer playoffs last year. He was definitely worse at Worlds. And he has actually entered some games in the playoffs this summer. My problem with him is this. It reminds me of Bin before Bin got insanely good in the middle of 2023. Before that, Bin was actually a very streaky player. He would have mega carry performances. You remember that one Suning run and he had like the odd moment in RNG. But there's a reason why in RNG they were even benching him. And if you remember when they won Worlds with him as top lane and Zhao Hu as mid lane, I actually thought he sort of entered a bunch of those games and wasn't particularly good. It was the one where it was the online one where they played from China remotely, bizarrely, for a fucking LAN in Korea. Like, by the way, one of the most actually unacceptable violations of competitive integrity ever by Riot Games. And they even let the fucking team remote win. That was insane. But if you ever watched that one, Bin at the time used to, oh my God, he's already like the GOAT. He's the best fucking top lane. And he wasn't at that time, right? That hype reminds me of this because it's when you know someone only watched the international tournaments. They didn't watch LPL. And by the way, there's a reason why Bin got kicked out of the team after that. Bin then did, especially from last year onwards, become actually cracked out and unbelievably good. But he wasn't at the time. So actually, Zika's a little bit overrated. So this team actually, without Scout, they're not that much in my opinion. Like, it might seem mad to put them below TL and G2. But actually, for real, if they play them in a BO3, those two teams are going to have real good underdog chances to win. Now, I still think it's plausible if Yagao is like prime Yagao from 2 years ago or something, they have a chance to make playoffs, but I don't think they win any best of 5s. And sadly, I also don't think they'll be able to play around Gala very well. Here's a lesson that Gala is about to learn at this Worlds that sadly Ruler had to learn all year long, and people like Dracos have never learned, which is you thought it was just Ruler doing everything in those JDG team fights, didn't you? Because if you did, you don't understand team fighting in League of Legends. You don't understand that he had the best tank player in 369, who was also amazing at peeling in team fights, and he had the best team fighting mid laner at the time. Remember, it's Chovy that's not been like the god mid lane team fighter out of the mid laners. He's more like the side laner and the farmer. Knight is a fucking unbelievable team fighter. And at that time, last year, he was half the reason why Ruler played in like the craziest like fucking pocket I've ever seen for an ADC. That was the fucking dream. That was like when you hear those stories of someone having like the best defensive line and he just has all day behind to throw and to look and read the defense, they check down and pass to the running back. That's what fucking Ruler basically had in those team fights. When you took him out and you put in this exact guy, Yagao, to JDG, all of a sudden they were way harder fights for Ruler. And I think he played marginally worse, but not much worse. And there's a reason he wasn't anywhere close to the finals and wasn't even that close to coming to Worlds. I think Gala's about to find out the same thing. I've always thought he was a tiny bit overrated. He was never actually on the Ruler Viper level for me. But he is really good, and he's another player that got better and better over the years. And ironically, another RNG player that got overrated because of MSI. At the time, wasn't cracked out, but then was really good from last year onwards. So, or maybe it was like 3 splits ago he got really good. This guy joining LNG was one of the reasons they also looked like they should have had a chance to win Worlds last year. So I'm going to put LNG C for now. I think they're just going to struggle. Then we're going to go... I guess we should do the Western teams now. So let me see. I know it looks absurd to have Fnatic on the same line as like Mad Lions and fucking... LNG to be on the same line as Fnatic and Mad Lions seems insane, doesn't it? We'll put Fnatic there for the moment. Actually, wait a minute. I think logically, that's the problem though. I'll just say it straight up, I don't believe in a lot of the FlyQuest players, by the way. Like, Masu's good, but he's only played a little bit internationally. I don't really believe that he's going to have like Smurf performance at this tournament. I actually think Quad is just all right. Like, he certainly has skill, but I don't think he's been fully integrated into their team yet. Inspired is really good. Like, unironically, if I look at this tournament, I think Inspired might be like a top 5 jungler at this tournament. That's how good he is. But he's got Bwipo, who I guarantee will int at this tournament. I just know it. He's going to have the craziest main character syndrome and do some ridiculous picks and int like 2 or 3 kills the first 10, 15 minutes of a bunch of laning phases. So I'm feeling them for D at the moment, but I don't think they have a very good... Like, I think everyone above them should beat them. I think that's why it's totally plausible they can be here. They probably shouldn't even be better than LNG with Yagao if that's indeed who they're taking. I'll do the same for Fnatic. I think Fnatic and Mad Lions are all going on this line, by the way. And the reason why is this. Fnatic has the punching power that you can imagine if Oscarinin doesn't get dumpstered by the other laner and Noah can just sort of like play like a fucking human in a team fight and not just play super scared and not just randomly step forward and in, just play normal, then I actually do think Razork and Humanoid can win you with some BO1s. So you can be in position to be in that 2-2 game again. I just don't believe you'll win the best of 3 against any of these other teams. So unless you're going to get some absolutely fugazi one, like you actually get to play LNG or FlyQuest, or maybe you could say like a G2 or TL, but even they should be favoured. Maybe there's a world you can fluke and make top 8, but you're never beating any team in a best of 5 if you're Fnatic. So the main problem is your macro is going to kill you dead. Now look, you also, just like FlyQuest, have a massive bonus, which is you have an incredible jungler. Whereas Inspired is the brain jungler, Razork is just the fucking mechanics field jungler. This guy is like a prime Tian, but also like Tian, he can also be a little bit fragile sometimes. So I do think actually he's a top 4 or 5 jungler himself in this tournament. He's a fucking mega player. Probably a top 15 player in the tournament if we're being real. Maybe even top 10. But the problem is the rest of his team, I think all of his laners can int. And if this is the one time Humanoid is just really bad in, actually I don't think he was that great last Worlds to be fair. It's going to be no chance for Fnatic, and you're actually more like a D-tier team, but we'll put you there for now. The reason Mad Lions gets to be next to them isn't because Mad Lions, in theory, is as good. Like, the punching power of Fnatic is way better. But I'll tell you what, if you wanted a team that in BO1s is primed to actually have a chance... primed to actually have a chance to do... an upset in the BO1s, this is one of the best ones you're ever going to get. Like, for real, this is actually one of the teams that's like an underrated one that has a real chance to get some crazy BO1s, because, as they showed in the LEC season finals, I don't even believe they knew that those drafts would win. I don't even think they had scrims where those necessarily were like crazy drafts. I think they just knew we can't win playing standard, so we are going to absolutely go fucking mental in draft and flex everything we can and do all sorts of crazy picks, which reminds me of the good old Gigabyte Marines who's down there, and that's one of the reasons as a real underdog team, you used to hope they could get like a BO1 win, didn't you? So I think Mad Lions has upset potential. Dplus is going to go on C. I don't know, actually, because maybe they should be B. The problem here is this. Dplus this is the biggest problem they have. They're actually pretty good in best of 3, but in best of 5, they just look so fucking ropey. Now, I know they beat T1 in one of the matches, but it's not enough. And so the problem is, Like, you look at their team, they should actually have a real chance. They should, in a sane world, by the way, if they didn't have the flaws they have, they could be a low A team. Because the problem is, aiming can actually be, he's actually one of the best carries in this tournament. He's not actually necessarily a better ADC than Viper, than fucking Elk, and these, but I'll tell you what, he is actually sort of an old school ADC where you can just put all the resources into him, get him into a team fight, and he can carry the game. And he can do mad kill damage percentage, kill percentage, all that shit. He can carry the whole team fight. But the question is, are you going to get there? Like, I thought Kingen, like, mad glowed up this summer in a way that doesn't seem plausible for Worlds. I actually think Showmaker was way better than people expected. Lucid, the problem is a rookie, so that's why I'm scared about how he's going to do at Worlds. I just, like, Kellen was never good, so the Morham signing was good. It did seem to turn things around. He looked solid. Still, he isn't, like, an elite player for me. So this is mainly the Showmaker aiming show. Now, if you think about it, right, Showmaker, I actually think there's a world where he's going to be fine on the majors, and he might even have some of the mage counters that'll be pretty strong. Like, does anyone know? Will actually Syndra be played at this Worlds? Because if it is, obviously that's an interesting angle. And I actually think Showmaker actually is usually a tiny bit underrated internationally. So here's the thing. I actually think the problem Showmaker has is he's another player, bizarrely, from LCK, who's slightly overrated, in my opinion. Domestically, like, I think he's never been the best mid laner in Korea for me. But, like, I thought Chovy was better than him even when Damwon was on top. But internationally, it's probably the other way around. Like, he actually is better than Chovy internationally. So I do think they have, like, an outside shot, but the rest of the team isn't there. And the style's a bit one-dimensional for me. And the draft is going to be a bit more like just power picks, basically. So I could put them in here, but I think I'm going to put them in B instead. Again, this isn't a list. I think these are actually comparable teams. I just don't see the world where they do much better. Like, now, by the way, everyone in B has like an outside chance to be. Obviously, there's going to be 8 teams in the playoffs, isn't there? And there's 9 teams there. They obviously have the outside chance to make playoffs. But the weird thing is, I actually feel like it's more plausible that at least one of TL and G2 make playoffs than Dplus. I could just see Dplus letting you down. Especially that last 2-2 game. Like, I'm thinking it already. They end up playing like a G2 there. Hansama has one really good game. You have one really good game of fucking Caps. That's it. You've won. You won the best of 3. I don't know about that one. Like, 100 Thieves. Everyone else has to go bottom, surely. Isn't everyone else just bottom? We'll talk about all of them. And by the way, this is why I actually changed it up. I don't need an extra tier. Yes, obviously 100 Thieves in theory is better than some of these teams, but are they, is the question, right? So 100 Thieves in a sane world probably wouldn't even be at Worlds. It should be Cloud9 probably, right? So I don't think this team's going to be very good. I don't think they can do a whole lot. I don't even think they're going to win a BO1 against any of the teams ranked above them. I think they're just going to be a 0-3 or a 1-3 team. Like, maybe they can get Gigabyte Marines in a random game in the 0-1 game and win that, but that's about it. Just go to here a second. Let's just look who Gam has. Right, Gam still has Levi, which was the jungle that helped them do all that crazy shit over the years. Easy Love. Did this guy win MVP of the league not that long ago? Let me have a look. No, he just won the VCS, okay. So I don't believe in them. PSG has Maple, Betty, Yunjia. If you don't know, Maple and Junjia have been like LPL players and were good players. They're even coached by, this guy was actually a legit coach, if you don't know. He was coaching the LPL. I showed him in that video before. So he coached EDG when they won Worlds. So I actually think PSG are always going to be criminally underrated for me. In fact, everyone who's the best melty. And also they've got Maple, who is just like a storied international player who can have international carry games, blah, 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 blah. So I already think PSG has to be given credit. The problem is I can't put them into C. Can I? Can I really put them in C? Let me have a look at this a second. I mean, I didn't watch much of them this year, but I do know the players is the issue. So they won both splits at MSI. I'm trying to remember what their games were like at MSI. From what I remember, yeah, they went 3-2 with BLG, which was legit. Then they got rocked by G2, but it's all the same. No, maybe I am going to. You know what? Just for a gamble, I'm going to say I'm going to put this team in C. I'm going to say I think from jungle, mid, and then the AD's all right, and the coaches that. I actually think they've got a sleeper chance. I'm going to say they're the worst of the C teams, but I'm going to put them as a sleeper there. Look, it does look mad to have Mad Lions, PSG, and fucking LNG on the same line, but that's because it's not the real LNG, remember? Meanwhile, if I go these teams down here, I barely even know these other teams. So I don't really give a fuck about any of them. Like, there's a world where I could actually be harsh. Maybe I'll just take some of them out and they don't even get to be on D. Like, who doesn't deserve to be on D here? Let's go and look. Because you know what? 100 Thieves isn't good, but surely they're better than some of these fucking teams. Like, SoftBank Hawks. Put the fucking thing up. There's surely no way this Ebby team with Vista, who used to be the support when fucking Chovy was trying to hard carry shitter Hanwha Life in the playoffs of the major. Surely they're not as good as 100 Thieves. What the fuck? You can't take teams off? Is that real? Okay. Whatever, I would have just left 100 Thieves only on there then. So I would take all these other ones off. Because I just don't believe minor region teams are ever going to do this. Like, no one gives a fuck about them. Ooh, Summit plays for this team. In that case, fuck it. I guess I would have left this team on there. Because I'll tell you what, in BO1s, as long as there's carry champions available, Summit absolutely could carry a 1 BO1 game. I don't know about the rest of the players, but I totally think that's plausible. Let's go and look what he's playing this summer. There we go. Jax, Aatrox, Jace, Renekton, Twisted Fate, Skarner, Jax. Oh, and he even then went to the Cassandra in the Gnar when he needed to. Load of Poppy. He's actually playing quite respectful. Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I actually like that one. Maybe we even put those all the way over there. The rest of them I would probably just remove just to make the tier list fair. But I think that'll be my tier list for now. Let me think. Would I move anyone between? Like, part of me thinks Hanwha should actually be down here. Like, is Hanwha actually a true... Because here's the problem I have with them. I do think Peanut is more than good enough to win Worlds. I think Viper is more than good enough to win Worlds this time around. I think Delight is good enough to win Worlds. I don't really think Doran's quite good enough. And I think that Zika, I could just see him not being good enough on the meta champions. So it's 3 players enough to make you S tier. And you, except for that one time in a best of 5, full 5-game series, you never beat Gen.G. I think I actually have to put you down here. I think I'm going to say that. Yeah, I think I'm going to say fuck it. I think you're going down here. I think it's more plausible if I look at the highs, the lows, and what a medium game might look like. Hanwha Life is way closer to top esports and Weibo than they are to Gen.G and BLG. Now, I could have been harsh here and also said, fuck Weibo, they go down to here. But the problem is, I just think Weibo fundamentally in a best of 5 is better than every team down here. T1's debatable, but I think they would almost certainly, in my opinion, beat Team Liquid G2 and Dplus in a best of 5. Or even the best of 3s if they play in the 2-2 game or a match where people have already had 2 to 3 tournament lives. So, but is there anyone in C that should go up? No. Should anyone go down? No. By the way, I legitimately do think PSG could be a better team than 100 Thieves. Remember, 100 Thieves players also mega inexperienced. Let's go look at their players for a second. Right, Sniper, I don't believe in him to do anything internationally. River is like one of those people who's like big fish in a small pond, conveniently for his name, because he's never quite as good internationally for me. Quid, I have no idea what he'll do. Could be really up and down. Tomo, I just never believed in ever. I don't believe in him now. And Ayla, I think, is an actual fucking bomb. And then they're coached by Golden Glue. No, thank you. I'll take a hard pass. So yeah, they can stay fucking in D. I think this is my tier list. Yeah, there we go. I also actually like the fact that it's just also satisfying, isn't it? It goes 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Just sort of like a pyramid in it. And then Chovy's at the top of the pyramid. By the way, even though it's a millionth time this has happened, obviously the hope here is that this is the final. Gen.G against BLG in the final. Knight against Chovy. One of them gets to win Worlds. Then we get a cool storyline with them. Obviously, Gen.G can't do the Golden Road anymore, but it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. It's all fine. By the way, if Gen.G wins Worlds, they will but themselves be the team that, look, technically, the closest to winning the Golden Road was T1 in 2015 and it will be Gen.G. Because the closest in the sense you had to win one more game. But actually, the furthest along the path of the Golden Road was obviously G2 because they got the final, didn't they? And did win those tournaments. Whereas we'll never know if you actually had won Summer, if Gen.G would play the same at Worlds. We'll never know if T1 had actually played Faker all 5 games at 2015 MSI. Would they, by winning that tournament, have played the same in Summer and at Worlds? No one can know. Maybe that even changed everything. I think that one result does have a butterfly effect. So I think these are the right teams. Like, if you look here, you could totally see Gen.G and BLG winning Worlds. After that, it's mainly Hanwha Life and top, but you could see a universe where Weibo gets the right meta. T1, massive outside chance. TL, look, they're going to look good, potentially, but they probably can't close the game out. G2, conversely, might look like shit, but have a chance in a bunch of games, have great comeback potential. Dplus could win in a sort of very one-dimensional way, and that would actually, funnily enough, be somewhat alike, since King is on the team, like a DRX-type win if they manage to win the tournament, not least because it's going to be so much through fucking ADC and hoping that the mid laner gets a meta he can play. LNG's just unlikely to win anyway. I think Gala's going to be trapped in hell. FlyQuest's just going to be inspired, showing that his teammates aren't good enough, and Weibo's got an enormous fucking ego that's not justified at all. By the way, that's also sad. I know Weibo talked a lot of shite anyway. He's just a guy who likes to talk a lot. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's whatever. But why the second that LCS Mickey Mouse trophy, remember, there's not even any Bjergsen and Doublelift there anymore, boys. There's 2 less teams, for fuck's sake. Why the second that Mickey Mouse trophy hit his fingers, did he turn into Nemesis and start talking? Like, in Europe, we've got a group of, like, Nemesis, Weibo, and Caps who are like gods of the game, and everyone else is a cretin who doesn't even understand the basics how to play League of Legends. Like, bro, I'd love to actually see Weibo, the analyst, actually tear apart Weibo, the fucking player's play, in the way he does to other top players, elite players that are much better than him, by the way. It's the same thing I always used to think about Treats. Tell you what, that Treats fella seemed really spicy when he was in the sack with Dom, didn't he? Then when he was the one coaching like shitter immortals and they were dog shit in every regard, suddenly it wasn't so funny anymore, was it? It wasn't really like, you could imagine the sort of rude things he'd have said about himself in the sack if he'd have been the one analysing and it wasn't him, eh? So I think, yeah, that's bullshit. I think the Fnatic one is just pray for Razork and Humanoid to smurf. Mad Lions is just crazy flecked and draft potential. PSG, it's all about jungle mid and the coach. We've actually got some underrated sleeper players there. Look, best case scenario, we're probably only making it to the 2-2 game, that's it. It's going to be hard to win best of 3s. Maybe we can fluke one over like a Fnatic or something. Maybe we could have a close series against G2 again, you know what I mean? Dplus is going to be potentially beatable if Bot doesn't get ahead. 100 Thieves, I think, have no chance at all. Like, absolutely no chance. There's no universe where they can ever even make top 8. R7 is just the summit. Sure, you know I love carry top laners, especially Koreans. I'm going to be watching those games just for the upset potential. I might even bet on some of those. The SoftBank one, they don't really have the charm of the old team because obviously it was that fucking Aria guy or whatever in mid lane with the Ari, which was kind of the... Was he called Aria? I can't remember. Whatever that guy who used to play for Detonation Focus Me was. I don't really give a fuck about this team. GAM, look, Levi used to be fun a million years ago. They just haven't been a team that anyone cares about. No one cares about VCS. Pain, I don't care about Brazil. And then whoever this is, was that some... That was this team, right? Let's have a look. That was the other VCS team, so I don't care about them either. There's my tier list. There's my tier list. Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who, in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadjou, Mac Pugnatio Rajcula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Tooorin, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are? Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.